Everyone, this is Lori Barnes back with another full moon video. This is for the dynamic full moon in Aries, which is also a supermoon. Stay tuned and learn all about it. The full moon is coming up on October 17th, which is Thursday. If you're in the United States on the West Coast, it'll be at 4:26 a.m. early in the morning on Thursday. On the East Coast, it's 7:26 a.m. And if you're in Rome, Italy, where I'm broadcasting from, it'll be at 1:26 p.m. in the afternoon. This full moon will be at 24 degrees of Aries. This is the chart of the full moon. You can see the sun and the moon are across from each other because the full moon always means the sun and moon are in opposition and the sun is lighting up the moon. So let's start off with Aries. What is Aries all about? It's the sign of the full moon. Aries is about independence, adventure. It's a sign known for its courage and its bravery. It's also known for its impulsivity and impatience. Aries needs to express itself and take initiative. It's of the fire element. This is a sign that's passionate, energetic, bold, enthusiastic, and daring. It can also be a bit demanding. It is of the cardinal modality, a sign that initiates, that starts things. It's ambitious. It's also impatient, but it's a trailblazer. This is a sign that's about pioneering new things. Some of the archetypes associated with Aries are the warrior, the conqueror, the self-starter, the emperor, pioneer, and daredevil. The symbol of Aries is the ram. One thing I want to point out on this chart is that Chiron is very close to this full moon, and that's the symbol. It's like a K with a little circle underneath. Now let's look at the opposite sign, Libra, which is where the sun is traveling. Some of the keywords that have to do with Libra are harmony, diplomacy, being fair-minded, and sociable. Also, social justice is associated with Libra. Libra is an air element sign. There is a social nature to all of the air signs and an interest in intellectual conversation. It doesn't mean that Libra is more intellectual or smart than any other sign, but it does tend to be interested in things of the mind. So to talk, to chat, and sometimes to gossip. Libra is also of the cardinal modality. So Libra is also a leader. Both Aries and Libra are cardinal modality signs. This is a sign that's about diplomacy, but also leadership and taking initiative. Some of the archetypes that have to do with Libra are the judge, peacemaker, diplomat, and romantic. And the sign of Libra, or the symbol of Libra, is the scales, because Libra is always balancing, trying to find balance, but also it weighs things. This is where the diplomacy and justice comes in. Libra is about being fair and seeing both sides of a situation. So when we have Aries and Libra involved in a lunation, there's always this concept of me-focused, self-focused, and other-focused, and people-pleasing. So at this full moon, you can think about how the balance between self and others may show up for you. There's lots of different vibes happening at this full moon. So I'm going to talk about the vibes and then I'm going to give you the details for where all of this information is coming from. There's a lot of different aspects or configurations at this full moon. We could experience some sudden shifts and unpredictability. Mars, which is the ruler of Aries, is very active at the full moon. It is involved in a grand cross and a water trine, and I'm going to talk more about those in a few minutes. But for the unpredictability, Mars is in contact with Uranus. So that can bring about some erratic behaviors, and the way action is taken can be a bit erratic or unpredictable or rebellious, because Uranus is about rebellion. Mars is in the sign of Cancer. That can mean that taking action is not so direct like Aries tends to be, but can be more zigzag. Mars is also trine Neptune, so bringing Neptune into the mix, that even further supports this concept of indirect behavior. And it can be hard sometimes to avoid a situation if you're trying to be more passive, because with this grand cross that's in place, there's going to be a lot of tension. So it's kind of like we're being forced into action. Mars is in Cancer. It doesn't really want to take direct action. It wants to go more zigzag, but it will be pushed into action. And there's also a water trine happening at the same time, and Mars is involved in that. So there's this ease and flow of energy between the planets in the water signs And there's more of this tension between the planets that are in the cardinal grand cross. So we'll look at those different configurations. But what you want to know is that there's tension, there's some harmony, there's some indirect type of action taking, there's some erratic type of energy with Uranus to Mars, and then there's also some diffuse type of energy with Neptune and Mars. So it's quite interesting, and Mars is really active at this full moon. More vibes. Pluto is making its final journey through Capricorn, and it was retrograde. It turned direct just a few days before the full moon. Because Pluto moves so slow, it's really sinking into this last degree, this 29 degree of Capricorn. And now that it's moving forward, it's really crawling. It's going very, very slow. That makes it more potent when it kind of sinks into that degree. This is the last time Pluto will be in Capricorn in our lifetime. It will not come back to Capricorn for more than 200 years. So this is a finalization of this transit, and it started back in 2008. So it's taken some time for Pluto to make its way through Capricorn, and that is a particular type of energy that's active at the full moon. Venus is sextile Pluto exactly on the full moon, so this brings in some power dynamics. It's an ease and flow type of energy, so it can be empowerment and intense connections. And then wounding and healing. So bringing Chiron back in. Remember from the earlier slide, Chiron is right next to the full moon. So bringing Chiron into the vibe, it's highlighting maybe some personal vulnerabilities or bringing up some childhood wounding. Chiron is the wounded healer, and it usually brings up energy that has to do with some wounding in our life, and then how we work through it. So there is a chance of working through that wounding as well. The wound is the place where the light enters you. I thought that was a beautiful quote from Rumi that really speaks to this Chiron and full moon energy. So what are some things to do with this full moon? Take some time and reflect on your relationships or some of the important life experiences that you're going through now. Maybe there's a work thing or a hobby. Take some time to look at those things in terms of balance. How well balanced are you for taking care of yourself, and how balanced are you in what you have to do to take care of others or the time that you have to spend on others? So it's that balance between me focus and other focus. Journal about that. That would be a great activity to do. Another thing to do is to release energy through movement. Mars is about movement, and Aries is its natural sign. And Aries is definitely a dynamic, active, moving type of sign. So move your body, channel energy into doing something physical, especially if you have restless energy or you feel really agitated or irritated, because there is quite a bit of tension in this configuration. So go do things that you like to do to move. Martial arts, dancing, running, walking, swimming, whatever it is, move your body. Mars is in Cancer, which is a water sign, and it likes to move. So swimming is really a great thing to do during the full moon. And then the last thing here is set bold intentions. Aries is a bold sign. It wants you to take action and be bold about it. Own it like it's yours. At the full moon, set some bold goals. Write them down. Put them up somewhere where you can see them, visualize them, and keep them top of mind. Here's that cardinal grand cross. It involves the cardinal signs, which are Libra and Aries, so the signs of the sun and the moon for the full moon, and it involves Capricorn and Cancer. So you have these 4 signs all at 90-degree angles, which is a square. Squares are tension. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because we need tension usually to push us into action. And that is what this full moon is all about. It's about action. And that's why you see here the square, and you can see the arrows in both directions, because you have 2 oppositions and you have the 4 squares. So you have the me versus others, which is the Libra and Aries axis. And then you have the Cancer Capricorn axis, which is about your public image and reputation versus your home and private life. All of them are going to have tensions against each other. The way that that shows up for you is going to have a lot to do with your personal chart. So you definitely want to get a hold of your chart and take a look as to where those 4 signs fall. I have a slide in this slideshow that will show you the meaning of the 12 different houses, and then you can go deeper into understanding what that's probably going to pull up for you. There can be challenges in taking action because we have Mars in Cancer, which can be more indirect, and there can be more tension around how to get that energy out. Mars is sextile Uranus, bringing that erratic type of action taking and some unpredictable behavior. But there's always opportunities for growth when there's squares and when there's a grand cross. It may be uncomfortable or irritable as we go into this full moon, while at the same time, it's pushing us to take action, or it's pushing actions onto us that force us into some needed change. So going back to Pluto in that last degree of the sign, I just wanted to point out it's called the erratic degree. That always means the last degree of a sign. Pluto is one of the slowest moving bodies that we work with in astrology. So when it is sitting on this degree, and Pluto just went direct, so that means it's moving really slow. That means it's really sinking into this degree. To add to that, this is the final part of Pluto's journey through Capricorn, and that means it's going to move into Aquarius and it won't be back in our lifetime. So we've covered that, but it's really important to remember this. This is significant for the world when we're looking at astrology and how it impacts world events. So you can think of this time period as wrapping up whatever this transit has meant for you over the last few years. Your chart may or may not be activated. If you have a placement in the last degrees of the cardinal signs, that is Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, then that part of your chart has definitely been activated. You can think back and you'll probably know right away what's been going on for you. And what this time period means is that this is wrapping up. So you're not starting this major change or transformation. You are ending it. So think about what you've learned, what's happened, how much has changed since this started for you. Pluto went into Capricorn in 2008, but that would have been in the early degrees of Capricorn. So we're talking about people who have placements at the very end. And then just from a world perspective, we're going to see Capricorn issues going into Aquarius issues. Usually when Pluto goes into the next sign, it's picking up the pieces or taking care of issues that are left over from the previous sign. So in Capricorn, we can say that when Pluto moves into Aquarius, it's going to be cleaning up any leftover problems or issues that have to do with power coming from the top down. That's Capricorn. That's hierarchical. And you can say it's going to be more about the people and the masses and humanitarian efforts, which is Aquarian. It's also going to be more about innovation and technology. And we're already seeing that with AI and some of the problems that we're experiencing in the world that need innovative new solutions. Now, Pluto's already entered Aquarius a couple of times due to the retrograde. It moves into Aquarius and then back into Capricorn. So it's been doing this little dance, but it's finally going to be done with that on November 19th. When it goes back into Aquarius, it will not retrograde back into Capricorn. So between now and November 19th, if your chart is activated by this, you have the opportunity to kind of wrap up, to reflect on, and think about how this whole process has impacted you. We have Jupiter in the mix with the sun and the moon. It is sextile the moon and it is trine the sun. And so this brings in some increased socializing, more creative ideas, and more inspiration. It's quite nice to have this as a backdrop to that grand cross. And we have a water trine. So this water trine, there's quite a few planets in water signs. So you have this mix of the air, fire, Aries, Libra, the full moon, and the sun, mixing with the grand cross of the cardinal signs, and this water trine that's involving Venus, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, and Mars. Excuse me, not Uranus. Uranus is involved with Mars, but it's not in water. With so many planets in water, with this harmonious flow between them, it can help smooth over some of those rough edges, kind of like a soothing energy. It can bring some depth and intuition to what is going on, especially understanding that tension that's coming from the grand cross, being able to have this more harmonious flow of the water signs with the planets and the water signs. It can help reflect, process through what's going on. It can also be erratic and diffuse because, as I mentioned, Mars has those connections with Neptune and Uranus. So we can't ignore that Mars, which is very active in the grand cross and the water trine and the ruler of the full moon, and it's in aspect with Uranus and Neptune. So it's kind of like, whoa, Mars is like super, super involved, and it has all these different energies that it's working with. It's really kind of like about balancing the tension of the grand cross, using that water trine to help kind of like process through and understand what's going on, and then looking at the me and you, because that's the full moon energy. A couple of other things to mention. Venus is exactly sextile Pluto. A sextile is usually a harmonious type of interaction that also has an active component to it. So this can bring up power dynamics in relationships and hopefully bring in some empowerment. We also have Venus moving into Sagittarius right after the full moon. So Venus won't stay in that position with Pluto for very long. It's kind of like active that day and then it's gone. Venus is also at that last degree, that aneretic degree. The difference between Venus being in that aneretic degree and Pluto is that Venus is going to go in and out of that degree really quick, whereas Pluto has been sitting at that degree for weeks, or I didn't check, but maybe even months around that particular degree. So it's more powerful only because it's there longer. We also have the sun moving into Scorpio on October 23rd. So in your chart, what you want to look for are all of these signs that I have referred to, and think about the topics associated with the astrology house in your chart. That's going to give you more information. And don't worry, I have a slide with that information on it. You want to look for the Aries part of your chart. That's where the full moon is. Taurus will have Uranus. Gemini is where Jupiter is. Cancer is where Mars is traveling through. The sun is traveling through Libra. Mercury and Venus are traveling through Scorpio. Then Venus will go into Sagittarius. And we have Pluto and Capricorn. And lastly, Saturn and Neptune are going through Pisces. If you don't have a copy of your chart, you can get a free one from one of these online generators. And I have two right here on the slide that you can use. Here are the keywords associated with the different houses. Once you have your chart, then you can find the sign in your chart, and then you can see what are the topics associated with that part of your chart. And you can get more depth and information as to how this energy is going to show up for you. Another quote for you: the only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. I just love that because it's the Grand Cross and the water trine together, and Pluto in that 29th degree. It just really sums up the energy that we are walking into this week. Thank you so much for watching. I will have another video for you in a couple of weeks on the next new moon, which is going to be in Scorpio at 9 degrees, and that's going to happen November the 1st. If you want to schedule a consultation with me, you can use that QR code or go to LoriBarnesAstrology.com. Thank you so much.